Hi everyone, Brian here, and I'm going to take a look at the Retron 5. I had the Retron 5 for about a month now, month or more now. I've had it pre-ordered since like October 2012, I think, and I'm going to do a quick little review of it. It retails for $139. I was fortunate enough to pre-order it on Amazon for $80 after shipping. So for those who don't know, the Retron 5 is a system, basically a computer that runs an Android operating system that takes your cartridges, Genesis, Super Nintendo, NES, Nintendo, and the Famicom cartridges, Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Color games, dumps the ROM onto the memory, adds graphical filters, enables you to use save states and other emulator features, and also outputs an HD 720p 1080p signal to your LCD or plasma TV. It's HDMI only and has a slot for an SD card as well to upgrade firmware from Hyperkin. Now here's the system itself. You see on the front it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little system lights. These light up when this corresponding cartridge is in when playing. For example, there's the Game Boy Advance, Famicom, Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo, and Genesis. On the front you have the power button, and you have to hold it for about 5 seconds to power it up. To the right you have the very nice feature of the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy, and Game Boy Color slot. So yes, this will play those systems on a TV. On the left you have the Player 1 controller ports, allowing for first-party controllers for Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis. You have the Sega Genesis port for Player 1, NES port, and Super Nintendo port. So those are plugged in, and I got my controllers hooked up. And you can use original controllers on the Retron 5. Any feature can be mapped to these controllers through a series of button presses, so you don't need to use the bundled controller. On the left you see Player 2's ports. Obviously with them being spaced apart like this, you can't use controller adapters like the NES 4-score or the NES Satellite. Here is the included controller. It's a Bluetooth controller. They sell it separately. It's comfortable, but they decided to go with a analog stick, and that really drags it down. Retro are 8-bit, 16-bit games, platformers especially, need precise directional control that a D-pad provides. This analog stick is imprecise and causes some problems in movement. If I want to go up, if you press too far to the right, you might go right. Very, very inconvenient, and that really drags the controller down. Other than that, it feels nice. This up here, I think, is a save state button. Select, home button, and start button. This is the fast forward, which speeds the game up, so it's like you're playing the game while a DVD or fast forward button is on the screen. See, it's a standard 6-button layout on a diagonal, and it's molded to fit in this little cubby right here. This cubby provides two purposes. As I said, it'll play Genesis games, but with the power-based converter, it plugs into the Genesis slot, and it's molded to fit the power-based converter in here, and it allows you to play Master System games. If we spin it around here, let's see if I can turn it around. You have the AC adapter cord. It's very short. I had a hard time wrapping enough cord around the back of my TV stand to the power adapter. So keep that in mind when you get it. It has to be close to the power adapter. This is a proprietary charging cable for the controller. It looks like a mini USB. I don't think it is, but you have to use the cable that they provide to charge it, and it charges into the back of the console. So that's kind of a bummer. You just can't plug it into a TV or a computer and charge it. As I mentioned, it's HDMI only. The Android console, the Retron 5, will scale the graphics to a 720p signal and display it onto an HD TV. Something that old consoles only display 240p. TVs have a hard time seeing that, or they scale it up to, and they're up to display on 720p or 1080p. Excuse me. and it causes issues like delay and graphical anomalies. Here is the SD port. It allows you to plug in an SD card to update your firmware, or more storage space for game saves and screenshots. Okay, so now that the overview is on, we're going to power it up. So you have to hold the button here. 3, 4, about 5 seconds. You see the console's lights up. Here's the boot screen. You cannot get rid of this screen. I couldn't find a way to get rid of the splash screen. And here we are of the main menu. You see no card is inserted, play, game menu, settings, and power off. On the right, when you insert a cartridge, it'll tell if it's a Game Boy Advance, Game Boy, or Game Boy Color, Famicom game, NES game, SNES game, or Genesis, and these icons will light up. On the right, you see the controller port, Bluetooth controllers. There's none connected now, but if I pick one up and pick this guy up and hit it, it will sync, and you'll see that it will go orange into the first port controller, indicating that there's one controller. So I have all of the controllers hooked up, so I'm going to grab one and going to the system menu for you. I'm going to explain some of the settings. Video settings I will touch on when I play the games. Basically, I want to make one thing clear. If you have Force Original Resolution on, this will force the original resolution of the game, so that all your filters will play in a really, really small window. If you put on a filter when Force Original Resolution is on, the game will shrink down to a small screen. It won't fit the screen at the resolution. It'll fit down to its original resolution. And as far as I know, there's no way to play it with a filter on with Force Original Resolution on. That's okay for me because I don't play with filters. So to use filters and fit the screen, this has to be off. Okay? Display overscan, I couldn't get it to turn off the overscan. I'm not sure if I understand that properly, but that didn't work for me. I couldn't get rid of the overscan, but that's okay. And aspect ratio. This, again, if this is set to normal, if I set this to stretch or zoom, and this is on Force Original Resolution, this overrides this. So Force Original Resolution overrides aspect display. It'll always stay the original resolution, even if this is set to stretch. So if you want to stretch it out to fit the screen, or zoom it, this Force Original Resolution has to be off. That's the most confusing thing I found out about this setup. Screen refresh rate, that's basically 60 Hz for NTSC and 50 Hz for PAL. I leave it at match game, so if you put a PAL game in, it matches. NTSC game, it matches. Screen size, basically, if I set this down, you see the screen gets smaller. This is basically to fit the screen, the display. Audio and sound enhancements. This is basically like a boomier sound, like with bass and then sound enhancements. I didn't care for it, but I turned it off, so I turned it off, but it's all preference. The controllers. This is to manage the Retron 5 bundled controllers. You can buy them separately. Controller to player mapping. This is cool because it's saying system playing, NES Famicom. Okay, if you plug in the controllers, say I want to play NES Famicom games with a Genesis controller. If I have one plugged in, which I do, then I just hit the Genesis button, and now it's playing with the Genesis controller. If I want to play an SNES or NES game with a Nintendo controller, whoops, then there we go. We're back to the NES controller. So basically it lets you specify with system what controller you want to do. So you see right here I'm playing NES games, player 1 and 2 with the NES controller, SNES games with an SNES controller, and Game Boy Advance games with the SNES controller. This is nice because since the Game Boy Advance only had 2 face buttons and 2 shoulders, a lot of the SNES features had to be mapped to the shoulder buttons. This allows you to map certain games like Yoshi's Island to all use the face buttons of an SNES controller to play it like the Super Nintendo version, which is very nice. Hotkey configuration. This basically says, okay, this lets you use the NES, SNES, and Genesis controllers to access the in-game menus, fast-forward features, save a state, load a state, or take a screenshot. So basically you go up here to the controller you want to use, go to in-game menu, and then you hit this, and it'll ask you to set a button combination. So for current and start, for the in-game menu, I have start and A. See, if I hit this, it says hold new button controller combination. So I'm going to hit start and A. Select it, there it is. And I have them all set up to how I want them. And you can do that to any configuration you want. So that allows you not to have to use the Retron's controller. Console region, I leave it to auto. Basically, there's no reason to take it off of that. There's USA, Europe, and Japan. Auto load last save is if you have a save state, when you put the game in, it recognizes the ROM, finds the save state in the save state folder, and loads that one when you start the game. Turn that on and off. Auto start cartridge on insertion. That's basically what it sounds like. When you put in a game, it'll automatically play it. Automatically import saves on first run. If you play a game that has a battery backup, when you put the game in, it will take that save and save it to the where the data is located, the data location. And that save data location you can set to the SD card, or it goes to the file manager, which is in here. And here is basically the drive in the Retron 5. It has 1.2 gigabytes of data, of storage space. SRAM is for game saves. You see it's specified into NES, SNES, Genesis, Game Boy. If I had Famicom, it would create a folder. See my Zelda save. And you see they're labeled like emulators, or ROMs, which is basically what they are. If you've ever found ROMs online, they're labeled like this. So there you go. And these snapshots, I think, is for your screenshots and save states. See, there's some right there. Okay, and the Retron 5 quick info on startup is like a screen when you first start it and set it up. It's a little thing about Retron 5. You can set that to be on at startup or off. System information. As of July 2014, this is the latest, Retron 5 application version 1.4, system software 2.2, and hardware version 1. You see internal storage capacity 1.2, available 1.2, and no SD card inserted. Write firmware request to SD. This is how you update the firmware. I showed you on the back of the console there's an SD card slot. To update your firmware, put in the SD card. This write the firmware option will be highlighted or available. Select that. It will write some data to the SD card. You take that SD card out and you will have to go to a specific Hyperkin website. That website is hard to find. The only way I could find it was to go on through follow them on Facebook, and they post links when they update a new firmware. From there, I go to that site, I upload that, I browse to that file that it wrote on the SD card. That then allows me to download a new firmware. I put that firmware onto the SD card, plug it into the Hyperkin system. The Hyperkin system automatically detects that there's a firmware on there. It will install it and then reboot, and then you're good to go. Kind of convoluted. I wish it was just Wi-Fi or an Ethernet port, but you can make do. So let's get down to the actual games. So I'm going to go out of here, and we'll start with the NES first. I want to show some filters and stuff and how it works. So we'll start with Ninja Gaiden. Or I always said Gaiden, but so we're going to plug it in the NES slot here. And I'm going to show you what happens when you plug it in. Loading, loading. Okay, it detects it properly. It'll say the game up here. If there's a game menu, 1 second. It'll have cheats. The cheat file has to be put on the SD card, and if it has cheats available, you can use them. Copy the save of the cartridge to the Retron, or copy save to the cart. I haven't used those. I don't have any experience with those, but I've heard that copying a save to the cart can be bad. It can lose your save, so I wouldn't recommend that. Copying from is okay, from what I understand. So we're going to play the game. And right now it's set to no filters, original screen resolution. So here's Ninja Gaiden. You can see it looks very good. The video quality on it is very good. This is with no filters, no stretching. You can see the pixels. So that's that. You see, it looks pretty nice. I'm going to zoom in to show Ryu. And now I'm going to show you some filters. So we go to the menu. There's also scan lines. Let me show you the scan lines first. Turn that on. You can see it, I don't know if you can tell, but it added a look almost like an old CRT TV, which is kind of cool. It's a nice feature to have. Do you want to play around with it? Now we'll turn those off, and we'll turn on a filter. I want you to see what happens. Turn on a 2x SAL filter. Or we'll turn on this one. Here we go. And we'll return to game. Now there, you see how it went to the smaller window? That is because I have set to original aspect ratio and original resolution. When you have that set to that and you enable the filter, it'll automatically go to the original resolution. So here you can see what the filter looks like. You see how Ryu's pixels are gone? If I go up to the top, you see how the pixels are all gone. It's kind of a blurry aliasing effect, anti-aliasing applied to it. You either like it or you don't. It's all preference. Now, if you want it to fit the screen and play with filters, then what you have to do is go back into your menu. Got to return to main menu. And under settings, you want to turn off force original resolution. Now that will fit the screen and apply the filters. So here you can see it a lot more pronounced with the filter. See up here. So I'm going to turn it back down to original resolution and turn off the filters. Okay, so I want to show you one more thing. I'm going to turn off the filters so it's applied to a normal, no filters. I'm going to go to return to main menu, settings, and I'm going to put on where it says aspect ratio. I'm going to go to stretch. A lot of people do this. They stretch the image to fit the TV. So if you want to do that, you can. Now, see how it fits the TV like that, but the aspect ratio is all out of whack. I don't like to play like this, but some people do. They like to use the whole TV. Now, if you want to do that, you have to be aware that if this option under the menu, if force original resolution is on, you cannot stretch it to fit the screen. So I'm going to hit this, go back, and play. See, it does not. Force original resolution will override all those stretching options. So I always leave that on. So that I just want to let people know about that. This is with the latest firmware. I haven't tested it with the older ones, so this is just for the latest firmware. So I'm going to go back to there. That's basically what I wanted to cover about filters and stretching and aspect ratio. So I'm going to go back to the settings, turn on Force Original Resolution, put that to normal. Image filter, none. Scan lines you can have on or off. You can apply the scan lines on the screen itself. Display overscan, I got no overscan. This I couldn't get to work, so I'm not sure about that. Force Original Resolution, leave that on. And that will always override your aspect ratios. It'll always be at the original resolution. And screen refresh rate, I always leave that. So that's that. And that's basically the game. I did notice about lag. I don't know if it's when you first start the system, Hyper can ask you turn on any game mode, or turn on any game mode. Basically, they're saying to improve or decrease lag. So I don't know if the system itself has lag or my TV does, but I do notice some with game mode off, and with it on, there's some. It just feels like there's a delay. After playing on the CRT a lot back in my game room, coming out here and playing on an LCD, it just feels different. Especially with Yoshi's Island, I was falling off stuff, and I don't know. That could be just my TV, or it could be the Retron 5. I can't tell because I don't have another TV to hook it up to. This is an older one from 2008, so it could be that. It's okay, we know Ninja Gaiden plays, so I'm going to show you how to take out a cartridge. So you could rip it out from here, but that just seems bad. So what I like to do is go to the menu. I like to reset. Oh, let me show you the save states first, though. You can set it to 0 save slot, 1, or 2. And then it'll overwrite the one that's on 0 already. So I'm going to go back here. Oh, let me go here. Okay. Oops. Go there. Return to game. So I have save states set up to be down and A. So, or down and start. So, okay, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit down and start. Okay, see save snapshot down there? I don't know if you saw that. There, that's a save state. So now I'm going to go in, say I'm doing really bad. Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm going to die. Okay, I'm going to go play a little bit. Oh, I'm doing terrible. That's okay, because you have a save state, which we didn't have, or I didn't have when I grew up. So I'm going to reload the save state and watch what happens. It goes back to where I previously was. This can be handy if you don't want to like force your way through a game. You can just kind of, it's almost like, I don't want to say cheating, but using technology against what the game was designed for. Like, you weren't designed to do this, but it's kind of cool to use to just get through a game. So I wanted to show you that. So that's that, and let's try out the fast forward feature. Oh, can't really get that to work. Oh well. You're supposed to be able to fast forward through the game, like it plays at double speed or triple speed. For some reason I mustn't have it mapped or not doing something right, but there is that option. What else? There's snapshots, but I don't have an SD card inserted, so if I try to do a snapshot or a screenshot, you see error, no SD, unable to save screenshot. So that's the main things I wanted to get out of the way. So let's do another game here. Let's go to the main menu. I'm going to return to main menu. Oops. You can do it that way, or I have a hard time with just doing that, so I always reset the game. You don't have to do this, it feels better for me to do this. And then I go to return to main menu. And then when you're at the main menu, okay, this is going to be these cartridges can kind of be tricky to get out. Not the NES ones per se, but other ones. So going to see if I can take this out here. There we go. Now let's try in an unlicensed game here. I really like this game, B-52. Let's try that. I think it works. I tested it and it works, so I did clean it, so we'll see. Wow, it picked it up so fast. The bigger the game, the faster it takes to load, but it already picked it up. Certain Game Boy Advance games take a long time. This is a pretty fun shooting game. Basically have to get to the house at the end of each stage. There's all kinds of insects trying to get in your way. It's a pretty fun game. If you ever see it, pick it up. You have to stop at all the honey, all the flowers, and get honey. Oh. So if I go in one seat, you got to do that for all of them. You have to avoid, that's a sprinkler. But that's B-52. See the image quality? It's very nice on the image quality is excellent. The sound sounds really good. So let's try another game here. We know that unlicensed games work, and they can always update. Hopefully they keep updating it. So I'm going to go to here. Whoops. I'm going to go to reset. I'm going to go to turn to main menu. Take out B-52. Let's try a Genesis game. Well, let's try an unreleased. This is an unreleased Japanese game. Reproduction with an English patch. Here we go. This is Sweet Home. It's a horror RPG, very influential for Resident Evil. It was actually based on a movie in Japan. But you can see unreleased fan reproductions work, so that's good. At least Sweet Home does. So I'm going to go to this here. I'm going to go to reset. Go here. I'm going to go to... Okay. Now we checked out NES. Let's try good old Genesis. Now these can be kind of tricky to get out. We'll try Castlevania Bloodlines. Play. I always pick John Morris. Of course, watching speedruns of this, Eric's a good choice to pick. It's nice to have one console just out in the living room where, you know, not a game room where I can just play if I want to, keep a few controllers out here. Okay. This is a great game. And you see up here, looks very good. I mean, the image quality is top notch. You see every pixel. I'm not feeling any lag on this game. It feels great. Okay, so enough with that. Okay. Now, this is going to be tough. You'll have to bear with me. I got to get this cartridge out. Oh. It's tight. Let's try an unlicensed game. I didn't try this one yet, so hopefully it is clean, but I might need to clean it more, but hopefully not. Let's try Spiritual Warfare, a Wisdom Tree. Please remove cartridge from your system before pressing OK to continue. Okay. Okay, let's take this out. Let's try this again. Get this out. So you see there's like a error message here. Okay, let's try this again. It's an unknown cartridge. See what happens if we play it. Warning, this cartridge is not recognized by the Retron 5. Usually this is due to poor connection between Retron 5 and cartridge. So we're going to go yes. See what happens. So it does pick it up. It just didn't recognize it. I have the NES version of this too. It's okay. It's actually a surprisingly okay game. Reminds me of Zelda. You gotta convert the heathens to Christianity. Okay. I got Wisdom Tree. Let's reset that. Let's take it out. The Genesis slot in particular is very tough to get out. Oh man. Excuse me 1 second. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Now let's try Super Nintendo. It's funny, certain games I feel lag on, like Yoshi's Island, I feel it. But that last one and Ninja Gaiden, I didn't really feel it. Nice. See, picture quality is pretty good. Can't really tell by the camera, but it looks very nice and it sounds good too. So okay, we showed Battletoads. Let's take out Battletoads. Okay. Do Yoshi's Island. See, it picked up where I last left off. God, this game's so good. Recently beat it again on the Game Boy Advance. It's a good version. And with this one, you can actually map the buttons. Like, Game Boy Advance only has 2 face buttons. You can actually map it and play it with the Super Nintendo controller, which is awesome. Yeah, Yoshi's Island is one of the better looking pixel art games. The art style is timeless on it. You see, everything looks good. So that's good. Classic ding. Now, Game Boy and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. Let's start with Game Boy Advance. Label side up goes in. Now these take a long time because Game Boy Advance games were pretty big. So you see it loading takes a while on some of them. Contra Alien Wars Advance. This is basically a port of the Super Nintendo version. See what a Game Boy Advance game looks like blown up like that? You see that it still has the overblown brightness that a lot of games have, Game Boy Advance games have. Let's turn off Force Original Resolution, see what that looks like. That didn't change anything. Let's do this. Okay. So you saw how Game Boy Advance games looked. Let's take it out. And we'll try a Game Boy game. Kid Dracula. Unknown cartridge. Try it again. There we go, picked it up, Kid Dracula. Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that. It's nice to just be able to play Game Boy Advance, and you don't need a Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games. You don't need a Game Boy player, even though those are nice and they're awesome to have, and everybody should have one that has a Game Boy Advance. Should have a Super Game Boy at least for Game Boy games, and Game Boy player for the GameCube. This is just another option to play on. This is such a great game. I just picked it up and been playing it a little. It looks pretty good. I mean, for blown up like that, it looks nice. Okay, so got one more game to show you guys to test out the Game Boy Color compatibility. Wendy Every Which Way. It's a way-forward platform game. Now, as you know, certain like Game Boy Color games, you could hold the shoulder buttons or certain button combinations and pick like the color you wanted. I think that still works. This has a gravity mechanic like ugh. The NES game. Oh, jeez, what's that called? I'm having a brain fart. Where you could use control gravity. See how you can flip on the screen? It's very fun. Okay, enough of that. So that's basically my overview of the Retron 5. Good points are it looks beautiful on an LCD TV. It's nice to have it out in you know, a place that I don't normally play games at, except for the new consoles I have hooked out of here. It's nice to have one console out that plays all of these. It looks nice, sounds pretty accurate. There's a possibility for them to upgrade it and keep it up to date. In the hacking community, modding community, hopefully they can add so you can put an SD card and just play ROMs on it. That'd be awesome to have one machine like that to use the original controllers to play ROMs. The bad points, the controller's not good, and the power cable's way too short. You have to charge the controller with the proprietary charger. The cartridges can be way hard to get out, and I did notice some lag. I don't know if, but that's in their defense. I don't know how bad it is. It could be my TV's older. It's like 2008, so it could be that. But anyway, for $139.99, it's kind of pricey. If you can get it for $100, I'd say pull the trigger. I got it for $80. I totally think it's worth it for $80. But if you have all the systems already, this is a nice addition to it. To have out if people are over or such. So anyway, guys, it's been a long video. I just wanted to give my thoughts about it, and if you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully I can answer them. This is Brian, and I'll see you again soon. Have a good one.